when doing the paid ads then is we know who our audience is.
Right.
We know what their pain is. We know what the offer is. They're paying for this. We have the system. At that point, we had about 8 people. So now it's like, let's go and actually add fuel to this fire and start paying for it. Wow. So,
well, it's easy to dial up the ad spend when you have your target audience, right?
Yeah,
you
1000%.
know exactly how to communicate the offer. You know what? Well, one, you know what the offer is.
Right.
You know how to communicate it. You've now perfected that process. Right. So now all you're doing is putting more eyeballs on it.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Sam Kwak here, one half of the Kwak Brothers, and you're listening to The Entrepreneur Unleashed.
Hello again. I am so glad that you're here. As you know, my name is Edward Collins. I'm the host of Entrepreneur Unleashed, and you are in for an amazing show. Today, we have this awesome entrepreneur with us, and we're going to be diving deep into his particular story and his business to give you a leg up, because at the end of the day, you know, if you've been following me, I believe that the shortest journey to the outcomes you desire is to learn from those who've already made it there. Let's dive right in.
Let's do it.
Sam,
yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
Hey. Love being in Miami. It's warm, hot.
I'm telling you,
all the above, right?
It was a nice, easy flight in. Maybe not an easy airport to get through, as we were talking about earlier, but it's definitely a good time. Good time,
sure.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I know that obviously I know a lot about your backstory, but I'd love the audience to get to know a little bit about you too. So let's dive a little bit into where you are currently, though, because I'd like to understand what your current business is, so that the audience knows who you are and what you're doing now, and then we'll talk a little bit about how you got there.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So again, Sam Kwak, one half of the Kwak Brothers. What we do is, if I sum it up in one sentence, is we help American families achieve financial peace of mind through disruptive financial strategies. Okay. We all know that there's set pathways to make money and save money, 401k, IRA, and all that. But I think you being a tax attorney, you know there are some ways, right, beneath the surface, beneath the hood, of what we call disruptive finance. Okay. There's ways to, I believe, ways to make money, store money, manage money, save money on taxes that help expedite the process of wealth creation that most Americans don't know about. In fact, I was just the other day, I was watching Golf Masters actually with my neighbors, and I was explaining to them even the concept of something like a self-directed retirement plan, and they're like, how come I've never heard of this before? I'm like, dude, I need to hang out with more of you, right? Like I need to like give you money to teach me stuff. So it's those types of families that we want to serve, is hardworking American families, that really good-hearted people, that they want a way to not only accelerate freedom of money, but also just having peace of mind. I think most people don't want to be this billionaire, Elon Musk level, and start a space company, right? Right. I think most people just want not only the peace, but also knowing that their legacy and their future generation is protected. So that's what we're all about. That's the messaging. That's what we stand for.
The way I talk about it is what the real American dream is essentially financial freedom, right? So you're essentially giving an opportunity through a particular channel of disruptive finance, as you talk about, to get individuals into that state of financial freedom. I'm kind of curious though, where did your love of this approach, like this concept of financial freedom, like when did that start to ring true for you? Like when was it something that was real?
I mean, so are you asking when did the financial freedom happen? Or
when did you start getting interested in it? Because a lot of people, like I have a lot of conversations with a lot of different business owners from all over the country. And like sort of this number one theme that keeps coming to the forefront is that financial literacy is just not present pretty much anywhere, right? It's not taught in the American school systems, at least not in most school systems. And that leaves the real only other place for it to happen is around the kitchen table. But most of our parents aren't financially literate too. So like, where did this desire to become financially literate for you? Like, where was that born?
So I can get into all the backstory. I mean, I can just looking back throughout my childhood, I can see the DNA, right? Already like planted in there, just the raw. I can see myself as a child. If I were to see myself as a kid, I'm like, oh, this kid's gonna be an entrepreneur. But growing up, I didn't even know that was an option. Right. So first of all, I'll get to my like actual origin story later. But grew up as an immigrant from South Korea. Came to the United States in 1999. didn't even know, even before that you can start a company and be a boss. Again, I thought the pathway for me was to go to school, graduate, get a good job, and maybe 40 years later I might retire, right? Or be one of those old guys that get to golf every day. I thought that was the only pathway forward. I mean, no one really talked about money around me. I grew up in an immigrant community, so everyone in my community either had language barriers, they had credentials, but no one recognized their credentials because they probably
come from some
other education, right, from other countries. So everyone around me was either working really hard or working at a dead-end job, people working at a grocery store, pushing carts and chopping meat, right? And that's kind of what I grew up with. So I wasn't really exposed to wealth, entrepreneurship, idea of owning business. And it wasn't until when I was 19 years old, because I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do in life. I had zero idea. I had this idea, that idea, and my parents were like, no, right? Don't do that. Thought about being a music major, and then my mom's, she's a piano teacher, and she says, she's like, you become a music major, you live in shack forever. I'm like, thanks, Mom, got it. It's like, I love, and she loves me, and I get that. She knows that there's a bigger and better version of who I am. She just didn't know it either. So at the age of 18, I enlisted in the United States Army. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I'm like, that seems really cool, so I'm gonna go do that.
Okay.
So at least I compromised my parents by not joining the active side and said I'm just gonna do the reserves.
Okay.
And I'll go to school and I'll kind of figure out what I wanted to do.
Okay.
So as I mentioned, I had love for music. 19 years old, got back from the military, boot camp, the whole 9 yards. Literally just driving down the street of my college. This is January, Chicago, super cold, freezing, right, negative 20 degrees, in my beat up 1999 Toyota Corolla. I just had this weird thought, like an idea. I mean, call it a divine intervention. I have a faith background. I do believe in God. I think it was a God planted seed, him saying, hey, I want you to do this, right? So he's like, I want you to start a business, and here it is, right? And the business I started, and I'm like a little bit embarrassed to say and confess and share this.
Okay.
I started a mobile DJ company. So some people know there's people who like message me like, hey, are you still DJing? I'm like, no, I'm done. Like, just haven't done that in a while, but that was 2012.
Okay.
So 2012, January of 2012. Yeah, January 2012, driving down the street, I'm like, I should start my own business. I'm going to go DJ for people. And partly because I wanted to get chicks, right?
Right. There's always an ulterior motive.
There is, right? And then it checked all the boxes, right? Get to party with the students, right? Get to party with girls. Got to join a fraternity. I'm like, check. All right. And got paid to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let's do this.
Interesting.
And so that's where it all started.
Okay.
And so I was, at that point, I was telling everybody, I'm like, hey, I started this business. I'm DJing for people, DJing for parties and all that. So amongst my own crowd of circle, they're like, oh man, that's so cool. Like, that's awesome. And then I was working out one time, and a friend of mine was also working out with me. We just happened to run into each other. And he had another friend that I didn't know. And the guy that I knew, he was like, hey, I want you to meet this guy. He's also a business owner too. Like, you guys should connect. And the guy, the other guy that I didn't know was part of a network marketing company.
Okay.
And obviously they were trying to recruit me, but I mean, it just so happened. So by being recruited, they got me introduced to this book called Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Oh, there you go.
That's
the origin story.
That's the door that opened. Or that's the gateway drug, right? Like you take a sniff of Robert Kiyosaki, and then
many people's lives have changed by seeing that 4-box quadrant.
So again, the desire, the DNA, entrepreneurial DNA was there. Add to the fuel is Robert Kiyosaki's, which literally we can just call it a lead magnet at that point.
Yeah. Well, it definitely was.
Yeah. And then I read that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that. Then that opened up doors to real estate, investments, tax strategies, just the game of entrepreneurship.
How old were you when you read that? Like what's the age group?
19.
19.
Yeah, 19 years old. Yeah.
And it changed your life forever.
Changed my life forever. I didn't even know the word entrepreneurship. That's when I learned it. 19 years old.
Wow.
It's crazy. Wow. Yeah.
When you look at, so I'm kind of curious because obviously entrepreneurism is not really for everyone.
Oh yeah,
right. It's just not because you have to be willing to take risk. You have to be willing to put yourself out there, right?
Yeah.
Like you were telling everyone, you were in a business, right? You had a business and you were willing to go DJ for them. So you were putting yourself out there, putting yourself into this state of vulnerability.
Yeah.
What do you think prepared you for that? Like, was that something that was innate, or is that something you learned? Like, what was it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely part nature, but it's also nurture, right? Nature definitely, I think, the way that I was created, the way I was made, I'm definitely risk averse.
Okay.
Or I'm sorry, risk attracted to risk, right?
Okay.
So opposite of risk.
Yeah, willing to take risks.
Right, yeah, 100%. Okay. At the same time, combine that with, like truly, it can be treated as a handicap, but it's not. But I had naturally this trait of not really caring what other people thought. So people were saying, "Oh, that's too dangerous, Sam. You might risk yourself." I had even professors that tell me like, "Hey, sounds like an extracurricular activity. Like, what are you doing?"
Right.
So I didn't take their crap. I'm like, this is it. I'm not going to do this. But part of it also is nurture because my parents, church pastors. I think my dad's very entrepreneurial. Even you meet him now, he's very leadership driven, leadership oriented. He's got charisma. And so one of the things that I've learned, even just coming to the United States in 1999, part of the process of coming to the United States is you got to get a visa. I think most people who are immigrants, you guys all understand that. And so to get the visa, there's different types of visas as well, right? You just don't apply for random one. There's a reason why you need to come to the United States, right? You just don't want to be here to show up. So the visa we applied for, my family applied for, was a religious worker visa. So my parents being church pastors and having a religious profession, that's what they applied for. So it was 1998 when my parents decided, hey, we're going to come to the United States. We're going to take over a dying Korean American church, basically.
Interesting.
So they decided to come. And part of it, again, was also divine intervention as well for them, divine calling. We apply for a visa. We get denied.
Oh.
So just the United States says, nope, don't need you guys. Don't need you. Stay where you're at, right? And so my parents were like, if this is an actual divine calling, we're going to try again. So second time we apply, get denied again.
Wow.
Third time we apply. And mind you, each time you apply, it's money. Right? You're paying fees, you're paying application, takes a lot of work. And you're having to go to the embassy, make trips to that. So third time, denied. Fourth time, denied. Fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth. And it's interesting, my parents had friends that were also wanting to come to the United States for better opportunities. I mean, that's the land of freedom.
Absolutely.
Some of my parents' friends got denied 5 or 6 times. We're like, you know what, screw this. We're gonna go to Australia instead. So some of our dad's friends went to Australia. Some of them went to Canada. Easier in terms of
other
immigration.
locations. Right.
We kept going. We're like 9th, 10th, 11th. Right.
Wow.
So my parents, I think,
they're tenacious.
Yeah, I know.
That's for sure.
So my dad's like, you know what? One more shot. If this isn't it, then this isn't it. Right. So on the 12th try, we apply, and I still remember this day. It's so visceral to me, even today. My dad had an office, like a rooftop, like a little container box type of office, and we saw the mailman come by. We go downstairs, open the mailbox, and we get this nice thick envelope. Right? He opens it, and he finds our passports, because when you submit these visas, you submit your passports as well.
Right.
He finds the pass, and he's just flipping through it just because, this is probably another denial, right? They'll probably reject this, and then he flips, and then this time, all 11 times he's flipping, and then the next passport flip, next passport, right? But this time he flips and stops, and he looks.
The visa.
And all I see remember is he just walks upstairs like so fast. And he's like, pack your things. We're leaving.
We're going.
We're leaving next week.
Wow.
And legit, I think I had like maybe 4 or 5 days for me to say bye to my friends. Like,
wow.
This is first grade, 1999 for me. And so all of us get visas to come to the United States. So December 8th, 1999 is the day I step into the United States. But the lesson out of that is I see my dad getting rejected by the United States government 11 times, and he still goes.
Wow.
And so when I learned that, as a 6-year-old kid, you see your parents do that, you're like, oh, that must be normal.
Right.
If you want to accomplish, you keep going, right? Especially with the faith background that we have. I mean, if this is meant to be, we're doing it. We're gonna crush it. And so all that to say, it's nature and also nurtured seeing my parents. Like 11 times they've been denied, and on the 12th they succeed. I mean, what else the kid, a 6-year-old, is going to learn? Like, if you want something, you go get it.
You go get it.
Yeah.
And that plays so well into the concept of entrepreneurism in general, right? Because things aren't easy, right? A lot of people, like, we live in this Instagram world where everyone's seeing like the perfectly curated photos and the amazing like automobiles and planes and vacations, but they don't see all the work that goes into behind the scenes to make that even a possibility. Like, how do you like sort of juggle that, right? Because you've obviously achieved success. Milestones is success that many never will hit. How do you balance that, like, in your life? Because that is something that I know a lot of entrepreneurs do struggle with. So I'm curious how you've been managing it.
Struggling success.
Yeah, success and managing the whole concept, like being the public you and then also being the real you, and sometimes having them be the same person, but sometimes not, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so on cameras, I have my own YouTube channels and I've done podcasts. Like, you get me excited, I get excited, right? Yeah. It's just like, let's go. And I kind of am the same off camera. My brother would say all the time, like, with Sam, like, that's what you get. Like, you get what you see, kind of thing. So like, I don't have two faces, so to speak. But like, in terms of managing success, I think the last 10 years, I've done a lot to kind of be on this pursuit mode. And there's things that I've accomplished definitely with my own efforts. But I think even you looking at your success and everyone just reflecting, looking back 10, 20, 30 years, you look at all the things that happened that went really, really well. Sometimes you just haven't planned for it. It just kind of falls in your lap. And I think a lot of what I can say to be true and what is success for me 10 years looking back, a lot of it has been, the divine putting it on my lap and going, take this, right? It's been an incredible gift. So I've been on this reflection and introspection lately where I'm like, I can force things to happen. I can grind 12, 14, 16 hours a day. I can be the 2 a.m. hustler. But looking back at all the things that I've received as success and victories and wins, they've all kind of fell on my lap on accident. Now, was there part of me that needed to have intellectual capacity and intellectual capital to be able to receive and do it well? Absolutely. Yes. But I think there is a balance of receiving those types of gifts. If you believe in the universe, love, whatever you believe in. I believe in God, so I believe God, it was a gift, right, from God. Versus being intellectually ready to receive what God's willing to give you. So I think now I have this healthy understanding of like forcing things to happen versus receiving things to happen. But also the fine line is preparing for things to happen.
But it's the perfect marriage of opportunity and preparedness, right? Oh, yeah. So you're building skill sets continuously throughout your life so that when God does bestow an amazing opportunity in your path, you can actually seize upon it. Yeah. Now, when you look at seizing upon it, obviously you have seized upon it. Like looking at your business right now, you've definitely achieved milestones of success that most never get to. I'm curious, like, what would you point to as to being the most pivotal thing that is leading to that success, or at least the foundation of that success in this moment?
I think a lot of it comes down to being incredibly stubborn.
Okay.
But I mean, let me put that in a positive spin, right? Being persistent. But at the same time, I think a lot of it is when God gives you a desire in your heart and you know this is something you got to pursue, and I know it's from Him because it's not necessarily like all about me, and it's not about me and my bank account getting fatter every day. It's about, well, what am I going to do with that and take the gift, and then how can I bestow it for my clients, my families, my team. But yeah, I mean, if I sense that desire, I'm gonna commit and stick to it. I think commitment these days is such a cheapened concept.
Oh yes.
To where you see it in our, unfortunately, and I won't say this broadly, or I won't say this is a blanket statement for everybody, but I see it in the younger millennials, the Gen Z crowd, where this idea of commitment has cheapened out to where we no longer commit to an opportunity. We no longer commit to a marriage. We no longer commit to.
It's the swipe left mentality.
Exactly. So it's like, whatever gets me pleasure, let's do it. Whatever gets me the next paycheck, let's do it. Whatever gets me to the next status level, let's do it. As opposed to, there's beauty in planting something down and developing root and see where it goes. And that's really how I think the success came to me. Is I committed to this idea, and I didn't know how my business was going to grow. I mean, we've taken so many pivots that it wasn't in the business plan. Just put it that way, right? But I committed. But because I committed, the next door opened, and then I walked through that door. I committed to that door, and then when I walked through that door, the next door opened. But I didn't know what the next 2, 3, 4 doors looked like. All I knew was, this is the door. I'm going to walk through it. This seems to open up. The desire is there. We have the capacity intellectually and capital to do it. Let's go do this. A lot of times, all the doors close and shut, and there's only one door open. That's what we go with. Right. So I think that's been twofold, right? Success in terms of persistent, the desire they give you, but also commitment in terms of one commitment at a time. I think it's part of it is we have so much information these days that we have to be certain about everything. Yeah. But I think there is beauty in mystery. There's beauty in not knowing, and that's what keeps life fun.
Absolutely. Right? Let's give the audience some context, though, because I think it's important for them to really understand where your business is in this moment. So can describe it for us. Help us to better understand the landscape of your current business, team, what your infrastructure's like, how are you set up, that sort of stuff.
So I started out as a solopreneur, everyone does, right? Yeah. Now we're a team of about 23, 24 people. Okay. If we're counting offshore team, we've probably about 30 people total. So 30, 35. I lost track. I'm like, who are you? Yeah, right? What are you doing here? Right? And so 30, 35 people. Vast majority of it is sales, marketing, and we have a couple client success as well. So we're doing, we've at this point, we've crossed the 8-figure mark in terms of sales. And if you're in the ClickFunnels world, 2CCX, right? Is what we like to call it. We have multiple structures, kind of multiple divisions in that as well. But I guess what other aspects?
I know you and your brother run the company, right? Yeah. So help me to understand, what are the dynamics like between the two of you? Who's doing what? Have you clear responsibilities, each of you, or do you bleed over? And help me to better understand.
So the last 12 months, we've totally geeked out on EOS.
Oh, okay.
I know some of you guys may not know, entrepreneurial operating system. Gino Wickman did a phenomenal job simplifying this. So if we're looking at our accountability chart, Daniel and I are the co-managing partners. So he more so does the CEO responsibilities, and I do more of a CRO responsibilities. Okay. And then we have our COO, David, kind of runs all the numbers. He's a numbers guy. I mean, he is the metrics emperor.
And you go CRO for Chief Revenue Officer.
Yes,
is that what you're referring
to?
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, and why did you select that as your title?
So I've come to realize that I'm a phenomenal sword. Okay. Terrible shield.
Okay.
Right? And so I do a lot of damage. If you expect me to play the shield, I will cut things that shouldn't be cut, right?
Right.
But you get me to play offense, I will play offense really, really well. Right? Okay. David, our CEO, phenomenal shield. I mean, he is... he'll make sure that I don't whack things that shouldn't be whacked, right? And he's great. He's phenomenal. And Daniel does all the relationship side. He's a very good galvanizer. You get him to play that role really well. We pretty much have an army kind of rallying around us. Right. And then we have our VP of sales, director of marketing, and then VP of client success. That's our core leadership team. Okay. VP of sales, very young guy. We got super lucky. And I know he's listening to this right now. His head's getting big. Young guy, right? Very successful. He was our number one hire. And I think that he was, and again, this is going to make his head bigger once more. Right. And that is, I think one of the reasons why we grew from 0 to our 7-figure is because of a phenomenal sales team. Okay. And then director of marketing runs all of our day-to-day marketing, looks at our metrics, scorecards, all that. So, so it's kind of top tier accountability chart, if you will.
I'm kind of curious because I know there are tons of business owners out there that don't actually treat their business like a business, right? They're winging it. They're not really business owners. They're job owners, right? They had a bright idea. They believe the market will trade some dollars for the idea they have. So they go ahead and they operate, right? But they're not necessarily operators.
Right.
So how did you learn that? Like, what did you do in order to set yourself up to be a CRO, right?
I think I naturally had it. I mean, I was a CEO for a while, and I think I'm a phenomenal CEO up to a certain point, and then I got to play a specific role that kind of matches more of my skill set. So I was a CEO with definitely more of a marketing and sales heart, as opposed to like HR leadership heart. So really, I mean, when we started, I did everything other than sales. Right. So we had our VP of sales, Joel, kind of run all the closing, scripting, everything. I pretty much ran everything from the beginning.
But you did all the marketing.
Yeah, marketing, funnels, put the CRM together, data metrics, lead gen. Even up to a certain point, I even did the client success myself. I did all the consulting myself. So it gave me a broader perspective of the business from A to Z. So being a CRO allowed me to kind of just focus on that element. It's the acquisition element, but also being the managing partner. It's kind of, it can be awkward at times, but being the managing partner, I look at the business as a whole, like look at where we have constraints and figure out how do we, I mean, what's great about marketing and CRO is that you think everything in terms of data, right? You think everything in terms of analytics. So I'm looking at even our own client success team at now putting on my managing partner hat on, looking at our client success team and going, okay, what is the bottleneck? How quickly and how slow are we getting to time to value? Meaning, at what point is the client going, wow, this is valuable? And also time to completed value, which is they actually got the result that we promised. So there's two points, right? There's time to value and time to completed value. Time to value is like, hey, I'm actually getting value. I feel value. Time to complete it or time to realize value is, hey, I got the stuff that you guys promised.
Right.
So I look at that.
So those are your chief KPIs, right?
Yeah,
so
I look at those fairly regularly to make sure that we're staying within certain lanes and metric variables.
What is your opinion about like KPIs specifically with regard to like having team members own them? Like, do you do that at all? Or like, how do you actually manage?
So we have each of the departments. So we have a company rocks, right? Again, if you're familiar with EOS, so we have company rocks, but also broken down into we have little rocks.
Okay, help the audience better understand that because not everyone's read the book.
So a rock is simply an objective. That's really, a fancy way. I mean, the understanding that I have is you're pushing a rock up the hill, right? So that's why it's called rocks. But we have company level rocks, and these are more of an organizational, strategic, how do we move the organization forward? And then there's department rocks where basically if the department rocks are done well, the organizational rocks should pretty much be taken care of itself.
Right.
And then it's up to the department heads or VPs to then figure out, okay, which team members are going to own certain rocks, break the rocks even down to even KPIs. So now we're looking at certain pulses, going, hey, if we meet these pulses, which we regulate them through a scorecard every week, then we should be on our way to complete this rock, subsequently the organizational rock as well. Right. So at that level, leadership is so important because now it's the reason why certain things aren't being accomplished isn't because skill process. Now it's because of people. So now that's why we promoted Daniel up to CEO, is because now it's no longer about how do we do things well. It's let's get the people who are already doing things well just in that seat.
Okay. Yeah. When you look at the milestones that you've been hitting over the course of the past number of years now, like what were like the first, like obviously you're an 8-figure company now, but what were the first things that got you to be on that track, right? Because so few entrepreneurs ever get to 7 figures, let alone 8. So what were the things that set you up to be able to achieve that?
I think the first thing we did really well was we became obedient to the marketplace.
Interesting.
Now, what I mean by that is...
help me to understand that one.
So when we first launched our business to what it is now, that's actually January of 2019. So we were an affiliate to another great company. They're still around. They're doing amazing. We just had a different philosophy. Mm-hmm. We launched a company in January 2019, wanting to basically replicate what they did, similar products, similar offering. That's what we wanted to do. But about 3 to 4 months in, it became very apparent, and this is why metrics is so important, that most of our clients came back to us and said, hey, we like this module 6 thing. Can you like expand on that? And that module 6 happened to be the idea of how to pay off your mortgage faster. So most of the traffic we were generating and most of the clients that were buying were coming back to us and saying, hey, we want this thing, like give me more of that. Right. So when we gave the marketplace a platter of like basically a buffet, we saw that they were eating a lot more of this particular
module
item.
6.
Module 6. They're like, and then so we looked at each other like we had to make a very hard decision because both my brother and I, Daniel and I, were romantic with this other thing. Like module 1 is what we wanted to do. Like this other concept, the topic. We were passionate about that. We wanted to be big and be known for that, right? Okay. But marketplace said, we kind of like this better. And that's the whole idea where I think God just kind of gave this fell in our lap kind of thing. So we became obedient to the marketplace in the sense that we wanted this, market wanted this.
Right.
And so we're like, okay, let's optimize for that.
Right.
So about 4 to 5 months into launching our company, we pivoted our entire offer into just doing that and doing that better.
Interesting.
And what came after that was the clients were like, hey, you guys should like charge more for this. And I'm like, okay, all right.
Okay, well listen,
right.
we'll be obedient.
We'll do it. Yeah, so we started, I mean, hard to believe, but we started out selling this $497 one time. Like just pay $497, you're in. In fact, we got, I mean, this is a belief thing, but we thought most people couldn't afford $497.
Right.
That we even broke it into 3 payments of $175.
Oh my goodness.
I know, it's like bad, right?
Yeah.
I meet with my VP of sales and we go like, remember those days? Like,
remember those days?
Total cringe, right? It's just, I don't know how we did it or why we did it. But at the end of the year, 2019, we looked at each other and we're like, hey, we need to increase the prices. We need to do this. So we went from $497 and we tested, we were kind of scared. We're like, let's test $997. We tested $997 and people were still buying. In fact, the volume didn't drop. It was exactly the same.
And that was still a one time?
Still one time.
Okay.
And then we went from $990, and so our VP of sales were like, hey, closing ratio has not been affected. We're still, and sales team loves it because bigger commissions, same percentage. And then we were like, hey, let's go, and we also looked at the success rate, which is, like, I was ashamed to say it, but it was like non-existent. We couldn't track it. We didn't know how our clients were doing after we sold them the $997 package. No idea to tell, right? And a lot of the clients were coming back with emails and random phone calls, and it was very unstructured. So we took the process and said, hey, let's actually bring someone in to fulfill and like do hand holding.
Okay.
And we actually doubled the price again. So we went from $997 to $1997.
Okay.
$2,000, right?
Yeah.
And this is January of 2020.
And it's still just module 6, essentially.
Still module 6.
Expanded module 6.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So it was module 6 broken down to its own like whole entire course and program. And from 1997, brought more staff in. At that point, we had more resources to play, right? And even then, still 0 paid ads.
Wow.
So we did all that with 0 ads, all organic, all from YouTube channel. That's it.
Wow.
And this is 2020, right?
Yeah.
2020, middle of 2020, we meet some of our now leadership team who came over from other organization, joined us to be VP of Client Success and later COO. Brought those people and said, hey, you guys need to double your prices again. I'm like, I don't know about that. They're like, nope, or at least bring it up to another $1,000.
Right.
I'm like, okay, we're comfortable with that. Let's go bring it up. So we went from 1997 to 2997.
Oh, wow.
And then middle of 2020, we're like, let's do it again.
Okay.
3997.
Wow.
And then it wasn't until early last year, early 2023, we did basically a campaign of saying, hey, we're going 4997. And everyone's like, all right. So that's when we had a ton of like clients come in, and then 4997 is basically kind of where we landed.
Okay.
And so we're having amazing success at 4997. Paid ads we started doing 2021.
Okay.
So we figured out the organic game, we figured out the messaging. And the beautiful thing about doing the paid ads then is we know who our audience is.
Right.
We know what their pain is. We know what the offer is. They're paying for this. We have the system. At that point, we had about 8 people. So now it's like, let's go and actually add fuel to this fire and start paying for it. Wow. So,
well, it's easy to dial up the ad spend when you have your target audience, right?
Yeah,
you
1000%.
know exactly how to communicate the offer. You know what? Well, one, you know what the offer is.
Right.
You know how to communicate it. You've now perfected that process. Right. So now all you're doing is putting more eyeballs on it.
Yeah. So back to your question of like, how do you go from 0 to $1 million, or your first $1 million is obedient to the marketplace. It's your offer might be a lot smaller, or it should be smaller than what you think. Because I think most people have this like grandiose idea of like, I'm gonna offer this, I'm gonna offer that, I'm gonna offer right.
Yeah.
They want to turn this into a giant mega buffet, and it doesn't work because it's confusing to most.
It's
people.
overwhelming.
Yeah. So, and then we structured our program to be more of a consulting rather than. So we went from DIY to done with you.
Wow.
So do it yourself to done with you, and then we structured it in a very linear path. So you follow phase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then by the time you're in phase 5, you should have realized your value.
Wow.
So
okay.
So we've broken it down to that, and then we got hardcore data last year where we just like tracked it where exactly everyone was at. If they're in phase 1 or phase 5, we will know.
Okay.
But yeah, that's how we grew. So now I have a template in my head of how do we go from 0 to 7 figures. From 7 figures to 8 figures, at that point was all people.
Oh,
yeah.
The right humans in the right places.
Yes. So we just scaled with better people, better process. And that was really it. I mean, wow. At that point. So yeah, that's kind of 0 to 8 figure timeline.
I love it.
Yeah.
What's next on the agenda for you then? Because I mean, you've definitely hit amazing milestones.
Yeah.
You have operational efficiency from everything that you've described. Like, what's the next thing?
So it's definitely more traffic. Okay. But I think there's also, I mean, there's stuff I can't share. Maybe
understandable.
The secret sauce, but now it's introducing, and I don't want to call it a value ladder. I want to call it more of a value environment. Okay. And what I mean by that is value ladder, it implies it's linear. And again, nothing wrong with that concept for sure. But a value environment is once you've been able to have a client realize value with you, then offering all the supplemental complementary service around that. So now it's building different divisions. We're going to be we have a real estate investing coaching. So our primary offer is all about, it's a painkiller, right?
Yeah,
How do we help you pay off your mortgage faster and then save you money and interest?
Quite frankly, one of the better routes to take.
Yeah.
Like, people will buy a painkiller before the vitamin every day of the week.
Correct. And so once they see that they've saved tens if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, they see that and go, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Now let's go and make some money. Let's go and actually help you get into real estate, invest in real estate, multifamily, single family, whatever is your cup of tea. So now it's building this value environment to where we're increasing LTV, lifetime value of the customer. So they paid us once. Now how do we get them to keep paying for the other things?
Exactly.
So
when you were just getting started in entrepreneurism, obviously DJing and building that up, did you ever think you would be in the info market?
No, not at all. Again, this is one of those things where like 10 years ago, I would have been like, what? Like, if I went back in time and I told my 10 years ago self, number one, I would not have understood or gotten it at all, but I would have been like, impossible. There's no way. Right?
When you look at this amazing landscape that we're in, right? We live in such an amazing age, right? The access to technology, the ability to leverage technology. Like, what are your thoughts with regard to like the pluses and the minuses of technology and business and all the different types of business models that are out there? I'm just curious. So it's definitely more good than bad for sure. Okay. I do, again, after all, this is America. Yeah. Land of opportunity, freedom.
I love the fact that internet will allow you to start very quickly and get to success in your first million very quickly. I think this isn't something that's being taught or talked about because it's not attractive, it's not sexy, it's not Instagram worthy thing to talk about. But I've come to realize, being at the eight-figure level and being in an online internet company and having an online brand, is now to get to 9 figures, I got to make my business boring.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting to think about, because the bigger you get, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to be Elon Musk, I'm going to be like Alex Ramosi, I'm going to be, right? I'm going to have millions of followers. It's funny that the real money comes in the transition to becoming a boring business. And doing boring stuff. And so up to this point, we were the sexy finance channel and we did all that. But now it's like, how do we make this boring? And how do we actually make it so that we get the attention of the Wall Street people who are like, oh, your business is now an asset and it's actually valuable. So I think a lot of people get stuck in that 7-figure and 8-figure business because they don't see past their personal brand, which is important. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but your business has to become boring in the sense that you are not your business. Your business is your business. Yeah.
What do you think is going to be the biggest obstacle for you actually creating that? Like actually transitioning from, because you guys are doing exciting stuff right now. I mean,
it is fun. Yeah. It's
like, What's going to impede that progress? Like if you had to guess.
Yeah. If I'm being honest, ego.
Okay.
Right. I think most entrepreneurs have a hard time, admitting that. I have a massive ego. Ask my wife. I have a massive ego.
She knows the truth.
Oh yeah. But I think here's the beautiful thing about having a big ego is that if you're born or if you have big ego, life's gonna throw things at you that will not suppress it, but allow you to control it. So having a big ego, I don't think necessarily leads to bad results or bad things, but I think it's all about how do you tame it? How do you control it? Because I think uncontrolled ego is definitely dangerous. Right?
Oh gosh,
it'll ruin you, marriages, spiritual life, the whole 9 yards. But now, how do you take ego and turn it to confidence, but also humility? I think that's power. Power is not having this sword that you can wield, but how do you know when to even unsheathe the sword? I think what most men, especially the younger generation, have lost is the ability to the beauty of restraint. Is lost, right? Back in the day, 300-400 years ago, man was measured by how much restraint he can exercise. But today it's like, nope, just
go ahead and blow up anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's so true with business too, is understanding not necessarily your limit, but knowing how dangerous your ego is if uncontrolled, but also understanding that there's a path when life comes at you, crap hits the fan. It's an opportunity, a lesson to further exercise the restraint of your ego as much as possible. So I hope that wasn't too stoic.
I love it. I am a stoic. I mean, at the end of the day, I try to focus only my energy only on those things I can control and try to limit the access of that energy toward the
Ryan
things
Holiday
I can.
has a great book, right? Ego is the enemy, right? And I completely agree. So
the very first time I read Meditations was back in university.
Really?
So Marcus Aurelius. It was that was my whole entree into the concept of Stoic philosophy, Stoicism in general. When you look at that, like being a Stoic of sorts, I think that is actually a positive when it comes to entrepreneurism. What do you think are some other positives beyond Stoicism?
In terms of just
things
like
that are
virtue and all that?
Yeah, like, because I do think that there's because of the fact that we live in this Instagram world, there's certain influencers that are out there espousing certain types of approaches to business and entrepreneurism that I personally don't think are actually beneficial at all.
Yeah, or long-term sustaining.
Yeah.
I think the other aspects of, again, if we're looking under the hood to entrepreneurs that I meet, they have zero self-promotion in them. Now, again, that might sound counter to like, oh, doesn't that mean you can't have personal brand? Not for you, yes.
Right.
Like you can't build. So I think it's the guys that I've seen, they figured it out is they have personal brand, not for personal brand. They have personal brand because they believe in a sense of duty that what they have to share will have a positive impact in the world. Mm-hmm. That they have this upward commitment, like whatever their service or product is, they have to share and give it away. But also at the same time, it's weird because you have to have restraint in that too.
Yes.
Is not everyone's going to want your stuff. Not everyone should be for you. I mean, a great analogy to that is you look at the life of Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. He was arguably, I believe he was God, and arguably he was the most powerful man. In the Bible it says all power and authority rested on Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. One would have to ask, why didn't he just go around the world doing a healing tour and serving everybody? And when he, in the Bible, when he healed a crippled man who was crippled for 30 plus years I think Pool of Bethesda is what it is. All my Bible people correct me, but there had to have been at least dozens of sick people in that area that needed healing, right? Whether they were crippled or blind or some kind of illness that we don't know. But he yet goes to that one man and heals that crippled man who's been crippled for decades. Mm-hmm. So what that tells me is that it's not restraint for the restraint itself, but understanding what your purpose is and understanding who you're called to serve. Again, for me, that comes from God and understanding the type of people I need to serve. I think it's zero self-promotion. I see that trait a lot with very successful entrepreneurs, and some of the people that I know, you wouldn't even know their name, but they're like bazillionaires, right? Yeah. They can buy, a city if they wanted to, right? And yet you don't know them, and they have zero self-promotion. They're very self-secured. There's an equal, I meet people who are billionaires and gazillionaires that they have insecurities off the wazoo. It's nuts. They can't stand a competitor, being in the same room.
Yeah, they have no ability to separate themselves from that personality. Yeah, that trait that they have.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I'm not perfect. I have long.
Well, none of us are.
Yeah,
none of us
have a long ways to go. Right. Mm-hmm. If I have. I'll be dead honest. If a competitor walked into the door, I'm like, I would have a sense of the alpha, competitor is like, oh, I gotta puff on my chest. I'll be honest. That's probably how I'll react. But I know I'm in the making of something of a better, not more revenue, more success, but the person that I'll become, right? Mm-hmm. Like Michelangelo's David, a masterpiece. That's what I'm excited about. And so I think people who I see that are very successful in entrepreneurship know that it's not the money or the outer success. Mm-hmm. They're more excited about the person that they'll become.
That 20, process 30, of becoming.
Yeah.
That process of becoming is something that is amazing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What do you think you are becoming?
So,
who is the future Sam?
Yeah. No, I love that question because lately I actually asked God, who am I? What is the identity you've given me? Because I think a lot of times, and I have clients, so many conversations with clients where sometimes I have to kind of play therapy with these clients, because one client came to me devastated that they lost a ton of money, fortune's just gone, and what I hear in that situation, what God reveals to me in that situation, is they're devastated not because of the money, because they're devastated because the part of their identity has been ripped away. And if their identity was not with money or fortune or outer success, then they would not have been devastated. They would have been like, hey, I'm perfectly cool with me, who I am as an identity. Mm-hmm. That's a very dangerous trap. And also, it leads you to fear mode when something threatens your money.
Yeah.
So when you're in fear mode, you act out of fear, which oftentimes leads you to really bad and crappy decisions.
Yes.
Crappy decisions lead to more crappy situations. It's just this vicious fear cycle. Mm-hmm. So who you are as an identity is so important. I'll come back to that. But the identity that God gave me, and what He speaks to me is, He says, I'm a pathfinder for other people. And so, again, I thought I was entrepreneur. I thought I was CRO, CEO, the titles and the things you do, and author, right? And all these things. But rip all that away. Like, take all the consequential stuff out of the picture, then what are you? It's kind of that like meme, like in Avengers, like take away your suit and what are you? And then Tony Stark goes, I'm a rich billionaire playboy. Right? But I mean, it's a serious question for even ourselves is take away the money, take away the bank account, take away the house, then what are you?
Right.
And so what God calls me is a pathfinder of hope for other people. And I asked him more about that. I'm like, okay, what do you mean by pathfinder? Like, are you talking about me being the car, like the car model? Like,
right.
So me having the military background, he has me look up the job description of a pathfinder in the military. I don't think this job really exists anymore. I don't know, but back in World War II, this is a really cool story. When I saw this story, I'm like, this is so cool. Like, I want to be that. Like, and I know that I'm that.
Okay.
So back in World War II, when we invaded Europe, D-Day in June, prior to the main invasion force, right? And there's thousands of troops being landing in Normandy. The nights before, there were paratroopers that would drop in and try to do some undercover kind of operations, right? But even before that are these guys called pathfinders, and what their job is, they literally it's one or two people. They land by themselves middle of the night, and what they do is they find areas where the main invasion army can land and safely navigate. So they're the guys that go in, like, again, in enemy territory, no one's around you. All you're doing is finding ways and paths where people can actually paradrop into the enemy territory. And when you find it, and when you find an area that's safe, that's marked to be suitable for landing, they'll X mark the spot, or they'll throw smoke or send the coordinates back to HQ and say, hey, this is where we need to drop. It's safe. There's no enemies here. Less casualties, right? So you take that principle to any part of your life, whether it's business, marriage, relationships. God says, I'm a pathfinder. I'm doing just that for my business. I'm going ahead, exposing opportunities, exposing dangers, and bringing it back to the rest of the people so that they can go in and
safe path.
Yes. So you do that for marriage. You do that. You should just show up for your friends that way. That's what he calls me. So going back to the original question of what you're asking is, I mean, that's my identity. Is I operate out of that, and so it becomes this thing where when I make a business decision, I am offering my pathfinding gift to my business, not a CRO, not a CEO, not Sam Kwak, but me acting out of that identity and going, how can I empower people being their pathfinders?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's deep on so many different levels. Wait, I mean, I love this story. We're going to obviously continue this in many iterations over the course of our friendship. But I'm curious, like, as a pathfinder, like, what is something that you would want to share with the audience for them to get to their destination, to get to their milestone? Like, what is something that you can clearly say, hey, listen, if you follow this path, it's a safe process. It may not be right for everyone.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's safe. It's something that can lead to an outcome that most desire.
Yeah. I mean, I might push back on that because I think nothing ever in life is safe.
I agree. I
mean, I'm thinking here, like, what is safe? Like, how do you even? I mean, can you really live playing safe? I don't.
No, I mean, for me, the outcomes I desire are almost always found on the other side of caution.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to take risk, and because of that, there's danger involved.
It's one of those. Sure, you can play safe. I think there. Let me break that definition out to being prudent. So, I think there is prudency, being caution, wisdom, and discernment. I think nothing is ever safe because if you want to get to here, and I'm here, and I want this, whatever that goal is, right? $1 million, $10 million, whatever the gap, whatever desire puts in. I think Russell did a really good job at Funnel Hacking Live explain this. But God gives you this desire and go, I want to build this business, mega billion empire. But part of the process learning there, you get there and you go look back and go, wait a minute, that wasn't the thing. Like, he just taught me how to be patient. He just taught me how to navigate, how to be more bolder, or if you're like a hard charging bold guy like me, how to be more humble. That was the lesson, right? So you get the stuff here, right? It's at the other end, but inevitably you'll meet some kind of challenge in the middle where it will crush you. Like I had this experience in late 2023 where like I'm not a crier, but I cried because I'm trying to get to here, but like this is happening, and that is doubt, self-fear, fear, self-imposed limitations. Every man has it, right? And again, ego is the enemy in the sense that ego, it will tell you, no, like you're stuck here, and it's the lie, right, that you believe in. So in order to get to here, something must have to happen in the middle where you have to conquer fear, self-limitations, and receive truth to actually who you are. So the whole identity talk is such an important thing to me, because if being lost here and my identity as a pathfinder gives me confidence in going, okay, clearly God gave me the identity of a pathfinder. I'm meant to do this, and I'm going to carry on. And yes, this is part of my growing moment here. I'm going through some pain. I'm going through some challenges. Let's embrace it. So I think none of that is safe. Like from going here, is like there's a giant cliff and there's spikes everywhere that are going to kill you, right? And it feels like you're going to die. And I know you've been there many times in businesses where your business is doing this, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm dying, right? Like quickly, like bankrupt the business now, right? Like let's get this over with. Fail
fast.
Yeah, I've been there, but man, like it's none of that is safe.
Yeah.
But is it beautiful? Yes. It's worth it. Yes. On the other side of that, are there people waiting for you to come out with certain traits so that they can be served? Yes. That's what's worth fighting for.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, this has been an amazing conversation. What's one thing you want to make sure the audience takes home from this conversation?
Yeah. Nothing about your business plan will work. Right? And just, again, looking back 10 years ago to now, it's just like, how the heck did I get here, right? Like, I didn't plan this, right? I didn't plan any of it. Again, I felt like a lot of it has been received. I received it from the divine, and also, a lot of resistance happened. When it comes, just be reminded that it is part of the journey. That there's no linear path to success. I know it's corny and cheesy to say that, but every hero needs some kind of resistance to make the story interesting. So make it interesting.
Wonderful. How can the audience make sure that they keep in touch with who you are and what you're doing?
Yeah.
What's the best way for them?
I do a terrible job on Instagram. So if you message me there, DM me there, like I won't see it for a while, but YouTube is where you can probably find me the most. Facebook, I'm on Facebook quite a bit. So Facebook actually just upgraded me to like a public profile thing, which is, I didn't know that was a thing. So you can reach out to me there, or if you just go to thekwakbrothers.com, thekwakbrothers.com, shoot us a message and it will be answered. It's not one of those things where like you just message it and nothing happens. Like we'll address it.
Wonderful. I'll make sure that that gets in the show notes.
Oh yeah.
I truly appreciate you spending some time with us, but don't go anywhere because we're going to jump into the members only podcast.
Let's do it.
And for you at home listening or watching this, I know you had an amazing time learning about Sam's backstory, learning about his journey to getting to where he is now, an 8-figure business owner. But listen, if you are in any way interested in understanding what actual steps were taken in order to get there, you're not going to want to miss the members only version of this podcast we're about to jump into. And if you're not yet a member, what are you waiting for? Until next time, be well. Bye for now. Sam, this was awesome. Thank you so much.